Picture a man coming off the ridge at dusk, up the Tow River, deep in the shadow of the Black Mountains, in a winter cold enough to split a green log. He's built himself a good shelter, small, tight, banked against the wind with snow and spruce bough, the way his father taught him. He lets his fire burn all the way down to a bed of coals. No flame to throw a spark, no smoke to speak of, just a quiet orange glow throwing off a low, patient heat. Somewhere, in that last hour before he lies down, the cold stops feeling sharp. That's the part nobody warns a man about. The cold doesn't keep getting worse right up until it kills you. It goes quiet. It starts to feel like comfort. So he does the sensible thing, the thing that felt like wisdom, the thing every man up that hollow had been taught since he was a boy. He carries those warm coals in close, seals the flap against the wind, because heat is heat, and frozen is frozen, and fire fixes cold. He lies down warmer than he's been in a week. Come morning, he never stirs again. We told ourselves the cold took him. A man found still and blue in a still blue dawn. Of course it was the cold. In some winters, told by the fire, the story got worse. A bear, we said. Come down out of the rocks in the dark. The mountains didn't take that man. Neither did the bear. The fire did, though not in any way you're picturing. Sit with a number for a second, friend. In all the long history of the oldest wild country we ever fenced off and watched careful, 150 years or more, the bears there have killed 8 people. 8. That quiet little bed of coals he carried in to keep from freezing has killed about that many in a single year. It's still doing it. This year. In tents, in campers, in snug little cabins, to folks with a truck sitting warm in the driveway. Here's the twist, friend. What killed that man has a name, and it's the one thing that's taken more men in the dark than every bear that ever walked these mountains. And it's almost the exact opposite of everything the old fireside instinct tells a man to trust. I'll walk you through the 6 pieces of surviving a killing night with nothing but what the woods hand you, including the one piece nobody teaches anymore. The one that decides more than anything else whether a man wakes up in the morning or doesn't. I'm Amos Walker, 7th generation on this ridge. My people have held this stretch of the Blue Ridge since before it had a county name. My grandfather Josiah copied everything he knew into a leather journal before he passed, and made me swear the old ways wouldn't die on the ground with him. This is me keeping that promise. Stay with me by choice, friend. This one might keep somebody you know alive. Comment below and tell me where your people come from and how they made it through hard winters. I read every one of these, and I'm always looking for the next story worth telling. There are 6 pieces to keeping a man alive through a killing night with nothing but what the woods hand you. Miss any one of the first 5, and you lose the warmth. You shiver, you suffer, you make it to daylight miserable. Miss the 6th, the one nobody teaches anymore, and you don't wake up at all. Picture your great-grandfather at dusk, deep snow, breath fogging, walking a slope slow, with his bare hand held out flat, feeling the air itself. He isn't hunting a pretty spot. He's hunting the places where death pools up. Because cold is a liquid, friend. It runs downhill and settles, same as water, and it fills the low ground, the hollows, the creek bottoms, that nice flat shelf that looks so inviting because it's finally out of the wind. That's a cold sink. Bed down in the belly of it, and you'll wake 10-15 degrees colder than a man laid up 30 feet higher. The bottom of the hollow is where the freezing gets done, so the old man beds on the shoulder of the ridge, out of the wind, but up out of that, pooled, killing cold, back set against a boulder or a deadfall, something with mass that's soaked up a little sun and gives it back slow all night. Now here's where it got taken from us, by a tag. The catalog sold your grandfather a bag rated good to 20 below, and the moment he trusted the number, he quit reading the land. Nobody outlawed the ridge shoulder. They just sold him a reason to stop looking for it. The mistake I see most? A man camps in the prettiest, flattest bottom he can find, and lays down in the coldest air on the mountain. So tonight, walk your ground before the light's gone. Get up off the low bottom onto a bench or shoulder. Put something solid at your back. That's your first wall against the cold. But a good spot doesn't make heat, and it doesn't hold it. Which brings the next question. How big do you build, and how does the mistake 9 men in 10 make actually kill them? That's next. Here's the thing that runs against your every instinct. Scared and cold in the dark, you want to build big. A shelter you can sit up in, keep your gear in, feel like a house. Build that, and you'll freeze in it. Because you're the furnace, neighbor. Your own body throws off about the heat of a lit candle, hour after hour. That's the engine. Build a room, and you've a whole cold room to heat with one candle, and you never will. Build it small, barely bigger than your body, low, head near the roof, and that same candle of you can push the air up a few degrees and hold it. Your great-grandfather knew this in his hands. He'd build a debris hut so tight and low it looked like a woodpile a man crawled into, and pile the roof 2 feet deep with dry leaves and duff, because dead air trapped in dry material is the finest blanket God ever made. Then he'd seal it, chink the gaps, plug the drafts. Wind is a thief, and every gap is its door. Notice what we just did. Built small, built tight, sealed the wind out. All of it right, all of it plain good sense. Hold on to that. It's going to matter more than you know in a bit. The mistake? A door you can't close. Most folks leave a great gaping mouth on the thing and let all their candle heat walk right out it. So build it to fit you, not your pride. Low, tight. And plug that entrance behind you with a pack or a bough bundle to shut the thief's door. Now you've got a tight little box with a warm body in it. But there's a cold coming up through the floor you haven't accounted for, and it'll rob you blind while you sleep. Where's it coming from? That's next, and it's the one that near killed me. Let me tell you about the first bad night I ever spent up on Mitchell, before I knew what my grandfather knew. I did everything right that I understood. Good spot, tight shelter, sealed up snug. And I laid my bedroll straight down on the cold ground and froze half to death anyway, shivering till my jaw ached and could not figure why. Come dawn, I stumbled home half sick and told the old man, and he didn't yell. He just said, "The ground was drinking you all night, boy. Now you know." Because that's the trap. The ground isn't just cold, it's greedy. Bare earth, packed snow, cold rock pulls the warmth straight out of a body pressed to it, faster and harder than the coldest air could. Air you can heat a little. The frozen ground is a bottomless well, and it'll drink you dry from underneath while your top half feels near comfortable. So the old-timers never laid a body on the ground. Your great-grandfather piled a mattress of spruce bough, dry leaves, pine duff, a hand thick, then thicker, till he could push down and not feel the cold through it. 4 inches of dead, dry, springy material between you and the earth's greed. That mattress isn't for soft. That mattress is for your life. They knew it so deep it had a saying, "You lose more warmth to the ground beneath you than the sky above." So build your bed before your roof. The modern guidance says the same thing now in plainer words. Insulate below before you worry about above. The mistake 9 men in 10 make? They spend all their care on a blanket over the top and lay their spine on the frozen dirt. So tonight, before anything else, you build the bed. A thick, deep, dry mat, wider and longer than you are. That's the floor of the whole thing. Site, shelter, bed. You've beaten the wind and beaten the ground. But a body alone can only warm a tight box so far, and on the worst nights, that isn't enough. You need fire in the equation. And fire is where this whole story turns. Pattern break, friend. Hear me. Everything up to right here, the spot, the small shelter, the bed off the ground. Your great-grandmother could have walked you through before supper. Every survival book has some version of it. But these last three pieces are where the ground gets dangerous. This is where good, sensible, warm-hearted wisdom starts leaning toward a grave, and where the piece they let you forget is buried. Hit subscribe before we go on, neighbor. Not for me, because the buried skills we drag back up into daylight from here on, you're going to want every one of them when your night comes. Fire out in the open on a cold night is a spendthrift. It heats one side of you cherry red while the other goes numb, and near all its warmth flies straight up into the black sky where it does a freezing man no good. An open fire by itself is a poor heater. That's true. I won't tell you different. The old-timers fixed it with a wall, a reflector. Lay up a stack of green logs, a heap of stone, or a packed bank of snow on the far side of the fire, and that wall catches the heat flying off to nowhere and throws it back at your chest and knees instead of the moon. Fire in front, wall behind, you tucked in the warm pocket between. And here's the part that matters most for what's coming. A fire has two lives. First, it stands up in full flame, bright, loud, smoky, hungry. Then it settles into a deep bed of coals, glowing, quiet, no flame, hardly any smoke. That's where the steady heat lives, a long, even warmth for hours after the flame's gone. Every woodsman worth a name banks his coals down at night, rakes them into a tight, glowing bed, so there's warmth till dawn and a live ember for morning. Bank the coals. Trap the heat with a wall. That's the fourth piece, and it's sound. But now the wind's up mean. It's 40 below. The trap out front isn't holding. And a freezing man, in a tight box with a bed of glorious warm coals 3 feet away, starts to think a certain thought. The most natural, sensible, deadly thought a cold man ever thought. What is it? That's next. Here's the thought. Bring it in. The flame's gone. The smoke's gone. It's just a quiet, glowing bed of coals now. No sparks to catch your bedding. No smoke to choke on. Nothing but clean, radiant heat sitting there while you shiver 6 feet away behind the sealed door. So bring it in. Scoop the banked coals into an iron pot or covered brazier. Set it inside, close it up, and let that patient heat carry you through the coldest hours. And understand, this was not the fool's move. This was the expert's move. Exactly what the careful men did. The catalog even sold the fine version. Little tent stoves, fire pots, warming pans of embers under the covers. When it's murdering cold and there's warmth 3 feet away, 100 generations of wisdom says don't waste it. Bring it in, seal it tight, keep the heat. Because the rule they live by sounds airtight. A fire in full flame you keep outside. It'll spark, it'll smoke, it'll burn you out. But coals settled quiet, burn past their flame and smoke into that clean orange glow. Those are the safe ones, the gentle ones, the done ones. The calmer the fire looks, the safer it must be. That right there's the myth, the belief that killed more frontier men than every bear on the continent, stacked in a pile. No flame, no smoke, no danger. Bring the quiet coals in and seal up warm. And here's the part that ought to stop your heart. Every one of those men, the careful ones, who did all 5 pieces perfect, did exactly this. And a great many never saw the sun again. So the question isn't what they did wrong. They didn't do a thing anybody taught them was wrong. The question is, what didn't they know? That's the 6th piece. Stay with me. I promised at the start we'd get here, because this is the exact spot where that man up the Tow River stood. And a whole century of the careful and the competent. Their spot was good. Their shelter was tight. Their bed was dry. Their coals were banked perfect and glowing gentle. No flame, no smoke, warm as a spring morning inside. They had done everything right, and they were dying anyway. Because there's a 6th piece. And it's the only one that ever really mattered. Everything that burns breathes out a poison. Wood, coal, charcoal, oil. Burn any of it, and it gives off a gas with no color, no smell, no taste, nothing at all to warn a man it's in the room with him. You can't see it. You can't smell it. Your body has no alarm for it, and it's death. Now here's the part that turns the whole myth inside out. A fire standing up in bright, hot, hungry flame, breathing all the air it wants, burns fairly clean. Most of its poison goes up and out. But a fire choked down, banked, starved, smoldering, sealed in a tight space where it can't get air. That quiet bed of glowing coals breathes out far more of the poison than the roaring flame ever did. Not less, more. Do you hear it? The calmer the fire looked, the harder it was killing you. The gentle, no flame, no smoke bed of coals they trusted their lives to was the deadliest form the fire could take. The thing they read as safe was the mark of the danger. And a tight, wind-proof shelter, the good one, built right, is a box with no way for the poison to leave. The better your shelter, the faster it fills. And what the gas does is the cruelest part. It gets into your blood and takes the place the air's supposed to go, and grabs on and won't let go. Better than 200 times as hard as clean air. You suffocate from the inside in a shelter full of air. And because you're asleep, there's no gasping, no waking. It just sends you deeper, deeper, then deeper. The whole shelter, the whole family, passes out through the night and never stirs. That's why nobody woke to raise the alarm. That's why we found them peaceful. I'll give you the one time it got written down proper. The killing winter of 1855 in the Crimea. Officers hauled little charcoal warming stoves into their tents and sealed the flaps against the wind. The same move exactly. Come morning, some were simply gone. A gallant officer named Captain Swinton found dead in his sealed tent, the coals still warm beside him. Then a young lieutenant. The papers back home called what killed them carbonic acid gas. They didn't even have the right name for it yet. And it never stopped. Families still do this in tents and campers on cold nights every single winter. Bring the little stove in, seal the flap, and never wake up. Not a mark on them. So here it is, the whole of it, in a breath. Find ground that doesn't pull the cold. Build small so your body can warm it. Get up off the greedy ground on a thick, dry bed. Trap the fire's heat with a wall and bank the coals. And then, the 6th piece. You never bring a thing that burns inside a sealed space to sleep with it. Not a flame, not a stove, not a pretty pot of quiet coals. Heat the space, then put the fire out, or put it out the door, and sleep in air you can breathe. Cold, you can survive. It's the fire you carry in that closes the box on you. This was never really about coals or shelters, neighbor. It was about a lie that wears the face of good sense, that the quiet danger is the safe one. Nobody sat in a room and decided to let you forget it. It's simpler and colder than that. The cold was the enemy everybody named out loud, so the fire got to be the friend, and a warm sealed shelter felt like winning. Nobody had to hide the killer. It hid itself because the men it took looked like men who'd only fallen asleep. So we wrote froze in the book and closed it. A man dead of the fire and a man dead of the cold look exactly alike in a cold blue dawn. But you're not helpless in front of it, and neither was your great-grandmother, because the knowing is the whole cure. So this week, do one thing, just one. Put a carbon monoxide alarm where you sleep, the little battery kind, costs less than a tank of gas, and another anywhere you'd run a heater, a stove, a generator. And make yourself the old promise. Nothing that burns comes inside a closed space to sleep. Not a grill, not a heater, not a lantern, not a pot of gentle coals. Ever. That's the sixth piece, and now it's yours. If this kept you up a little later than you planned, hit subscribe. There's more where this came from. And tell me down below, did your people heat a cabin, a wagon, a tent, a dugout? Did anybody ever crack a window in the dead of winter and not quite know why? The story with the most heart in it is the one I go deep on next. Next time, the wet wood fire your great-grandfather could raise in a downpour off a single match, and while the survival catalogs quietly hope you never learn it, keep the old